Hello, this is Vicky from the Spellbound Bead Company, and in this video I'm going to talk to you about decreasing tubular peyote. So we've made the tube and now we want to pull it in to cover the end of a needle case or to capture a stone or an object in a bezel. So this video is going to cover a couple of different ways that we've got that you can do that. So if I show you here, this is the top of the reef needle case. Now, it's not very easy to see. Can we see it better on this end? Yeah. So it's nice, it's flat on the end, and this is achieved by decreasing by skipping stitches. That's the way this has been done on the bottom. And then the other thing you can do is you can create a bezel by using a smaller size bead to bring the end of the tube in. So we've got the end of the Delica beadwork is just here, and then this edge here has been done in smaller beads, and that pulls it in so that it will capture the work. So there's one this side, and then you can just about see on the inside here is the other side. So the box has been done by making the bezel around the coin separately, and then we pick up the stitches and work up the side, and that I'll show you again in a separate video. So let's start with the peyote stitch decrease. So this is the tube that I was working on in the previous video, and what we'll do now is we'll just start decreasing. So I'll stop using the white bead for the beginning of the row, and for the first row of the decrease I'm just going to use these pale blue beads. So this is quite straightforward. So we're going to pick up a bead, we're going to put it in the spot where you would expect it to go, here, but then we're going to skip through the next bead around. So we're going to leave a gap and we're just going to come through the next bead here and go through and skip. Now you can do this in a number of different ways depending on what your bead count is at the end of the row and what you need to decrease it to. You can add a couple of beads and then do a decrease, or you can go through 2 beads if you want a more rapid decrease, but this is a good way to pull it in reasonably quickly and easily. So there we go. So we'll go through there. And then, right, so this is where you have to watch when you're doing your decreasing that you don't accidentally miss the step up. So we need to make sure that we're coming out of this pink bead, we go into the white bead, that was the end of that row, and then step up into the decrease row. Okay, so there you go. You can see the diameter of the tube's already started to decrease on the top. So what we're going to do on the next row round is we're going to fill these gaps by picking up 2 beads to go into each gap. And we're just going to pick up 2 and go through, pick up 2 and go through, pick up 2, through, pick up 2 and through, pick up 2, and again through the bead at the end of the row, and then step up into the new row. Now what you need to make sure you do here is that you start pulling it firmly so there are no gaps appearing. And there you can see the shape of the beads is almost right. So you can see we're going to get a pentagon shape decrease because we're working on a multiple of 5 here. So that's why we're getting this shape decrease. You'll get different shapes depending on the number of beads in the round. So you don't need to worry if yours doesn't look quite like mine if you started with a different number of beads. So what we're going to do now is on the next row, we're going to treat these pairs of beads as a single bead. So we're going to go through them and add 1 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 here. Okay, there we go. And now we're going to add a single bead on the top of the pairs. So you can see that decreasing happens over a couple of rows. So, and we started the decrease back here, and we're now coming down to the 5 beads in the round. So this is good if you want to completely enclose something. So if you want to cover the back of a rivoli or something completely, if it's somewhere where it's likely to get rubbed, it's good to have the back of the rivoli completely covered, so that you can, it's protected. It's also good, as we know, on the bottom of needle cases. It'll make quite a nice little bowl because you've got a nice flat bottom now to stand up. So now, because we've now got an odd number of beads, we need to be judicious in the way that we do the decrease. So I'm going to pick up one and go through one. And pick up one and come through. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to switch to doing odd count peyote. So I'm going to pick up one, and I'm actually going to come back through this green bead, which is the first bead of the round. I'm skipping the step up so that the bead will sit in the bottom and just fill that hole. And then if you go through these 3 beads again, you can see that's pulled in the bottom. It's not perfect, but you're never going to be able to cover a circle on the bottom with squares entirely satisfactorily, but that is good enough, I think, on the bottom there. And that is how to decrease using the same size beads and bringing them in. So the other way to do a decrease, if I join in a new thread and attach it to the top of the work, the other way to join in to do a decrease is to just change the size of the beads that you're using. So you can do a graduated decrease by using different size beads, or you can just do it so that you add all one size beads. So I'm going to be using what would be the equivalent of a size 15 seed bead, because I've used a delicate. So I've just got some smaller beads here to represent a size 15. So if we just come up through the work here, I'm just joining in a new thread just to show you what I'm doing. And okay, so what we'll do this time is we're just going to add 1 bead into every space. So just an ordinary round of tubular peyote all the way around. But because these beads are smaller, they don't take up as much space in the gap. So as you pull them through, they will start pulling quite quickly through here. So if I just come all the way around. So just watching here, because this is where we started the row. It might just get a little bit loose. So here we go. So keep coming all the way around. Oh, that bead's got a slightly smaller hole. Oh, and that one. Now don't forget, because you're using a beading needle, the eye on a beading needle is very flat, whereas because I'm using a darning needle, it is slightly bulbous. So don't be alarmed by seeing me discarding the beads. But having said that, if you do have beads that the needle won't pass through easily, put them to one side, because you don't want to get all the way round and then find on your next row that you can't come through. So back to the end of the row and doing the step up. So we'll go through the last bead of the row we're going round, and through the first bead we've added on this row, or not, as the case may be. There we go. And you can see that that's actually pulled in that row of beads, the edge of the beads, much more quickly than this decrease on this side did. So that's that first row. So we're just going to do the same thing again, another round going through every bead and just pulling this through. Now, if you've got a pattern, it will tell you how many rows of decreasing to do. It's usually around 2 or 3 if you're holding something in a bezel. So, but of course you can keep going and decreasing. Once your work starts, if you're going to do it this way and you want to completely cover the back, once your work starts to pucker, which it will do because it will get to the point where you've got the beads take up more space than's actually available in the round, then you can skip to doing this style of decrease. So pass through a bead, miss a bead, and do it that way, and you'll find that your work will decrease even further. So you can completely cover the back of your work using the 15s as well if you wanted to do it that way. So there we go, through, and then through the last bead of the round. Here, and this is going to start getting a little bit tight, I think. So, all right, let me find a finer needle. This is always a good tip as well. If your work is starting to get a bit tight and you need to go down to a smaller needle, then make sure you do that. Now, the trick I'm going to have is if I've got a smaller needle that is still thick enough to take the thread. So, we'll see. Oops. Here we go. I think it might be in luck. Yep, there we go. And then step up through the beads again. So there you can see that's 2 rows of decreasing. That's brought that in quite nicely. So it'll make the a nice top on a vessel. It makes it nice and smooth. It's great if you've got your beads in, if you've got a cabochon or something in there. So it'll just make a nice decorative edge without covering too much of the edge up as well. So if you want something that you've got and you want to show off what's inside, then this is a better way of doing it because it just gives you a decorative edge without covering up too much of your work. So there we go, 2 different ways to decrease in tubular peyote stitch.